each other so much. We love each other so much.
Ma'am, OP just posted critical levels of thirst.
These ratings are off the charts!
How much pussy does this motherfucker get?
We read 0 pussy, ma'am.
Dear God.
No! God, please, no!
So I've seen a lot of films this month and I'm gonna be reviewing them all together here in one video. There were so many incredible films that came out and I had a really great time just going to the cinema over and 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 over again. We're gonna be starting by Leos Carax's new film Annette, which opened the Cannes Festival on July 6th. And actually I was quite surprised to see that when we got to the cinema, we tuned in with the opening of the Cannes Film Festival and we got to see a lot of different interviews and we got to see a lot of celebrities and actors and actresses being asked over and over again what it felt like to be finally there and to see just cinema being reborn in some kind of way. And everyone was very emotional and the atmosphere was incredibly sweet on that stage, and there were actually a lot of interesting speeches talking about the magic of cinema. Bong Joon-ho as well, he came back.
오늘 이 자리에 모이신 이 위대한 그 필름메이커 아티스트 여러분들이 그거를 증명해주고 있다고 생각이 됩니다.
Justement, vous, tous les artistes, tous les réalisateurs du cinéma ici présents ce soir, vous êtes effectivement les témoins de cet art.
It's great, but I'm not crying. I'm not a crier. I don't cry. I work out. I have hobbies. I don't. Come here. What? Come here.
Because he was the winner 2 years ago, because as we know the Cannes Festival was cancelled last year, so we came back to introduce the opening film, which was Leos Carax's Annette. I wanted to explain to you like the context of how I saw Annette, just because I'm pretty sure that it 100% influenced the way that I experienced the film. I gave Annette 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. It's such a weird journey. It's kind of like a musical, opera, lyrical drama. I feel like the only thing that I could compare it to would be Les Miserables if it had a lot of comedy as well, because of course Leos Carax's films tend to have a weird kind of black humor within them. A lot of incredible performances by Marion Cotillard and especially Adam Driver, who is once again magnificent in the film.
We love each other so much.
Counterintuitive, baby, and yet we remain. We love each other so much.
There are some incredible set pieces which are at the same level as films like Shape of Water, for example. It reminded me a lot of that film. It's an incredibly weird art house film. I'm pretty sure that it's not for everyone and it drags kind of a bit. The pacing is a bit slow at times, but it's definitely really, really worth it once you get to the very end. I feel like it's definitely one of those films that will linger in your minds and you will keep thinking about it and singing all the different songs even once it's over.
Why do you always do that thing?
Do what?
That thing you do when you're fighting. And this thing that you do when you whip your hair when you're fighting with the arm and the hair.
The next film that I'm going to be talking about is Black Widow, that I saw the day after, so July 7th. It was once again the premiere and it was so incredibly fun to be there and to finally experience another MCU film at the cinema, because it's been such a long time and it's a film that has been delayed over and over again. I had a really great time. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the score, especially. I enjoyed the cinematography with all the red overtones that kind of signaled to the USSR, Russia kind of iconography. I really enjoyed Florence Pugh's performance, who is just amazing and she's stealing every single scene that she's in.
Please don't say that. It was real. It was real to me. You are my mother. You were my real mother. The closest thing I ever had to one. The best part of my life was fake.
And actually that is linked to one complaint that I have with the film, and that I kind of feel like that this was not exactly a Black Widow film as much as one of those films that is there to introduce new secondary characters that are gonna be taking new interesting roles in the future. It kind of feels like this was a second movie within a trilogy, just because we didn't learn a lot about her actual backstory. She didn't go through anything emotionally speaking that was new, unless you count the fact that now she knows that she can trust more people. All the other secondary characters were actually so much more interesting than her, and it's a bit of a shame, but the whole film itself was still a lot of fun, and it was really cool to see it on a big screen, especially because there are a lot of really cool set pieces. Another complaint that I have with the film, it's kind of the same complaint that I have about a lot of other MCU films, and it goes with the third act, which goes completely insane. It's yet another time one of those weird set pieces where everything is exploding and people are falling from the sky and jumping on each other, with each other, throwing at each other. It kind of throws the suspension of disbelief completely out of the window. And it's a bit of a shame, because I feel like the first act of Black Widow is almost a completely perfect self-contained drama, and I wanted the film to be entirely like that first act. And I kind of feel like this was a really good attempt at making a film that was more of a feminist piece. If you think back, for example, to Captain Marvel, you could really feel that they packaged that film way too much, and it started to feel like that kind of girl boss, kind of feminist message that we used to get in the 90s, and it's not as progressive today, of course, and it doesn't work as well.
Ugh, that was disgusting.
I was really surprised with Black Widow, because a lot of people and critics in the United States were calling it really mediocre, and they were calling it completely pointless, but I was actually quite surprised, and just because I actually enjoyed it a lot more than other Marvel films like Iron Man 2, like Thor: The Dark World, or even Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Black Widow was a lot more interesting than any of those put together. Le prochain film dont je vais parler, c'est Benedetta, c'est le nouveau film de Paul Verhoeven. Je vais lui donner là aussi 4 étoiles sur 5. Là, on a commencé un petit peu avec les 4 étoiles sur 5, du coup je me suis dit pourquoi pas continuer, hein. Et c'est un film que quand j'ai vu le poster, quand j'ai vu la bande-annonce, j'avais vraiment envie de le voir, parce que je me suis rendu compte en fait que j'aime beaucoup les films de Paul Verhoeven et je les ai presque tous vus.
See your name on it? Someone left it for me. Go find your own bag. Excuse me, ma'am, but I need it. Fuck you, you asshole!
J'ai vu Robocop, j'ai vu Starship Trooper, j'ai vu Basic Instinct, j'ai vu Showgirls, j'ai vu Elle, et j'aime beaucoup en fait la façon dans laquelle il voit la société, que ce soit la société américaine comme celle européenne, parce qu'il a vraiment un regard qui est très satirique et qui est très réaliste en même temps. Je trouve que Benedetta, ça apporte vraiment un regard très objectif et un regard qui est très cru en fait par rapport à la vision qu'on a d'habitude du Moyen-Âge ou de la Renaissance italienne. Et ça m'a rappelé un petit peu le film de Yorgos Lanthimos, La Favorite. Du coup, si vous avez aimé ce film, je pense que vous allez aimer Benedetta aussi.
Did you just look at me? Did you? Look at me! Look at me! How dare you! Close your eyes!
Bien sûr que c'est des films assez différents, juste parce que Benedetta, il y a toute l'iconographie en fait chrétienne, et on dirait presque parfois un film de possession, presque un film d'horreur, tellement c'est poussé loin, quoi.
Fuck me! Fuck me!
Father! Father! This is not part of the ritual.
Mais c'est un film que j'ai vraiment beaucoup aimé parce qu'il explore énormément de thématiques de façon très cool. Par exemple, tous les enjeux politiques qu'il y a entre l'Église et le gouvernement, on va dire. Et aussi le fait de vivre dans un endroit religieux très strict, d'être une femme qui essaye d'explorer sa sexualité, qui est intéressée par la luxure, et d'une femme aussi qui est codifiée en tant que femme queer. Et je pense que même si c'est pas un des meilleurs films de Paul Verhoeven, c'est sûrement un de ses films les plus provocateurs. Le prochain film, c'est un autre film en français et ça s'appelle Titane. Maintenant, on sait que ce film-là a gagné la Palme d'Or au Festival de Cannes et c'est complètement mérité. Je vais lui donner un 5 étoiles sur 5 sur Letterboxd, ce qui pour moi veut dire que c'est un film que je considère comme un chef-d'œuvre, un masterpiece. C'est le deuxième film de Julia Ducournau. J'avais adoré Grave, mais pour moi, ce film-là montre vraiment comment elle a maturé en tant qu'artiste, en tant que réalisatrice et c'est littéralement une meilleure version de Grave dans tous les aspects possibles, que ce soit pour la chorégraphie, que ce soit pour la photographie, que ce soit pour le mixage son, que ce soit pour les performances, que ce soit pour toutes les thématiques en fait qui sont abordées dans ce film, qui sont beaucoup plus complexes que dans Grave. C'est un film quand même art house, c'est un film qui est très difficile à regarder, mais c'est un de ces films vraiment qui crawls under your skin et c'est un film qui est impossible en fait à oublier. Le truc que j'ai vraiment aimé, c'est en fait toutes les interprétations que tu peux associer à ce film-là. Par exemple, moi, j'ai interprété le personnage principal en tant que personnage sous le spectre autiste. En fait, ça explique énormément de choix qu'elle prend dans ce film. En plus, Julia Ducournau apporte énormément de messages féministes sur la façon dans laquelle, en fait, en tant que femme, on n'a jamais, en fait, le contrôle complet sur son corps. Et ça, c'est représenté, par exemple, de la façon que le personnage principal tombe enceinte sans qu'elle en ait envie. Et du coup, il y a cette chose qui est en train de grandir à l'intérieur d'elle et qui est en train littéralement de la transformer et de détruire son corps de l'intérieur. C'est un film qui est très intéressant par rapport au fait de se reconstruire une famille, en fait, de choisir sa propre famille et d'être complètement soi-même et d'être accepté par les autres tel que tu es et ne pas prendre dans ta vie, en fait, les gens qui veulent juste te changer. Et je pense que c'est très souvent pour ça aussi que Alexia tue, en fait, des gens. Le truc que j'ai vraiment aimé, c'est comment elle détourne complètement la masculinité toxique et elle se moque de ça, elle la retourne contre soi-même, contre les gens, en fait, qui représentent ces standards-là.
La Palme d'Or est décernée à Titane.
Jane Campion avait déjà remporté ce trophée en 93 pour la leçon de piano, mais elle avait dû le partager avec Shane Kaige. Et adieu ma concubine, Julia Ducournau entre donc dans l'histoire de Cannes en devenant la première réalisatrice sacrée seule Palme d'Or pour Titane.
I actually wonder if you can see it on screen that I'm sweating like a fucking pig.
Come on, pig!
The next film is gonna be in English once more because it's Space Jam New Legacy and I saw it July 18th at the premiere. Once more, like Annette, this is a film that I need to contextualize a bit just because I feel like it really explains why I enjoyed it so much. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, which is an incredibly good score for a film like this. When these kind of films are announced, so sequels of cult films from 20 or 30 years ago, when they finally come out, they're always completely disappointing and all the characters and all the actors look so incredibly tired and it looks like they just don't want to be there.
Y'all ready for this?
It's a huge cash grab. But that's not what I felt with Space Jam. When I came into the theater, first of all, I only had like 10% of the audience which was made of children, which was kind of weird because I wouldn't expect that ratio when it comes to these kind of films. It was such an interesting and fun experience because everyone had grown up with the film and they were completely nostalgic about it, and I think that's exactly why I enjoyed it as well. I think I enjoyed it a lot, mostly because it's a weird mix in between Ready Player One and Spy Kids 3D. For Ready Player One, we've got all the different IPs and the different ways in which you can deconstruct them to make them even more funny. And Spy Kids 3D, of course, is the campy kind of villainy stuff that was done in Spy Kids 3D, and that is basically the structure of this entire film because LeBron James is being transported into a weird algorithm and he's being challenged by a villain called Al-G Rhythm, who is basically an artificial intelligence who wants to be free and wants to prove that he's the best at whatever he does, but who gives a shit? Honestly, like, I didn't care at all, but at the same time, just because of the Spy Kids 3D references, I didn't care in a good way. It's not like I didn't care in a bad, this is a bad film way.
Incoming.
LeBron James was actually really good. There are just a couple of line deliveries which felt a bit stiff, and that was a bit of a shame, but all the emotional moments with the other family members, they actually worked. Same goes with the tunes, and I really enjoyed the Looney Tunes as well. It was a huge nostalgia punch in the stomach. And I especially enjoyed how they blended all together the different IPs like Game of Thrones, The Matrix, Harry Potter, and so many different ones. And they used them to tell funny jokes using the Looney Tunes characters. And I was just completely mesmerized in front of the screen, and it was such an interesting experience to see it at the cinema. I feel like it's one of those films that if you see it on streaming, you will think it's the most dumb, stupid thing that has ever been created. But when you are at the cinema, it looks like such a huge and fun, bombastic experience. One thing that I didn't like about Space Jam, the new one, it's that I feel like they kind of missed out when it comes to bringing, for example, the Looney Tunes into the real world. It was one of the things that I really enjoyed about the original Space Jam. It was seeing all those different cartoons interacting with live action things, like in other films like Looney Tunes Back in Action, or even the classic Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I watched it on July 22nd. Old is the new M. Night Shyamalan film. We've been going through an M. Night Shyamalan renaissance lately, and I've really enjoyed Split. Glass was fine as well, and The Visit was a really cool film, and Old was complete and utter garbage. You'll feel yourself getting older, more bored, until you'll finally die, decompose, and you'll be nothing but bones and ashes. And there will still be an hour and 30 of more films to watch. I don't say this lightly, but Old is among the worst films I've ever seen. This is literally worse than The Happening.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No.
The dialogues are incredibly awful. The performances, I have no idea how he managed to get out bad performances from each and every actor on screen. Alex Wolff was incredible in Hereditary. How can you get a bad performance out of Alex Wolff? And just the entire structure of this film is incredibly stupid. It literally goes like this. You have a big cast, right? So you've got two people having a conversation, looking that way, other people going that way, and they're gonna be off screen for a while, and we're gonna be talking. Oh my god, you got older! Oh no, look how old they got! Oh, I have no idea what's happening here. Then they turn their face towards the other person who has left in the meantime and has gone somewhere else, hiding, playing hide and seek, whatever the fuck. Oh no, they've gotten older as well. Oh no, look at my hand. My hand is getting older. Oh no, we're all getting older.
And the Oscar goes to...
That's it. That's literally the entire film. And it fucking sucked. It was so incredibly stupid, and it really felt like every single time there was someone dying, they would always cut away. I don't know if maybe M. Night Shyamalan didn't want this to be too horrific, but it really felt like they literally didn't have to budget just show horrific deaths. So it would just be the awkward kind of thing, or like, oh, we look away, and then you see just a body floating next to you. Ah, a body! Oh no, he died. And they did that kind of thing like 2 or 3 times, which is really stupid. The CGI is so bad as well. So actually when there is violence on screen, it's all CGI, it's not practical effects, and it looks incredibly bad. It looks so incredibly bad. Honestly, I have no idea how these films managed to get made. How can the entire crew sit in front of this film and look at M. Night Shyamalan in the eyes and be like, we did it. That was a good job. It's ready to go.
Hey, what'd you get for your birthday? I got older. That is weird.
Honestly, like, my lips were hurting so much at the end of the screening because I wanted to laugh at everything. I was really retaining myself so much because everything they said sounded completely stupid.
I think we will all have to leave this beach. Wait, why? They left already. What happened? We really don't know what happened.
So many things were happening at the same time, to the point that there was no emotional stakes and there was no emotional depth as well to all the different things that were happening. Maybe it has to do with the fact there were way too many characters, which meant that the film was asking way too much from us. It was basically asking to care about the aging of 7 different people at the same time and to be invested in their emotional journeys and maturations all at the same time, which is literally impossible. It could have worked maybe as a series and you could have like 1 episode per couple, for example. You could have had a huge beach, I don't know, something stupid like that. Honestly, I don't even want to pitch like a better film because this film is so stupid. Even the ending, the twist at the end, because of course M. Night Shyamalan films need to have that kind of weird twist at the end. It wasn't even a twist. I didn't care. I knew there was a weird explanation because they were just pointing at it for the entire film. And also the solution to this film, so the way to get out of the beach, guess what? It was a MacGuffin. It was there since the very beginning. Oh no, we forgot to read the note that that person gave to us at the beginning of the film, which was the solution to get out of the beach. Oh, too bad everyone died. Fuck this film. So that was it. That was it for all the films that I watched this month. I think it was definitely one of the most prolific months of my entire life. I've never been to the cinema so many times, and I feel like if I wasn't going on holiday next week, I would definitely have been more times, because I think Suicide Squad is coming out next week and OSS 117, the 3rd one, is coming out next week as well, but I won't be there, unfortunately, to see them at the cinema. As a wrap up, let's see which films actually were worth seeing at the cinema. Titan is a really cool experience to have at the cinema. Annette as well, just because it has so many incredible big set pieces that need such a larger screen to actually enjoy them. I would say yes for Space Jam if you are nostalgic with the franchise, of course, and then you will definitely enjoy it, because if you see it on a small screen, it's not gonna be the same, as I said before. I will recommend maybe Black Widow at the cinema, just if you are an MCU fan. Otherwise, you can see it on streaming because it's nothing revolutionary. Let me know what films you watched this month at the cinema. Let me know if you've seen any of the films that I've talked about right now, and if you like them or not. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it always helps. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Et la monstruosité qui fait peur à certains et qui traverse mon travail, c'est une arme et c'est une force pour faire repousser les murs de la normativité qui nous enferment et qui nous séparent. Parce qu'il y a tant de beauté, d'émotion et de liberté à trouver dans ce qu'on ne peut pas mettre dans une case et dans ce qui reste à découvrir de nous.
Da 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 da.